This is presentation 1 from Unit 4, which is all about change. And the first presentation is about economic change. There's two parts to the economic change. There's the Industrial Revolution, which transformed the way that goods were produced. There's also the Market Revolution, which transformed the way that goods were transported to markets. The role of water and steam is crucial to both of these. In the Industrial Revolution, early factories are powered by water. In the Market Revolution, canals and steamboats are going to revolutionize the way goods are taken from one place to another. We're going to focus on the Industrial Revolution first. The table shows the situation by 1860. Up to 1860 is kind of the first Industrial Revolution in the United States. And you can see there are several items that, by the time of the Civil War, are being produced in factories. Obviously, the number one item is cotton textiles, produced in factories, mainly produced in the Northeast. Looking at a few things with the Industrial Revolution. We talked in a previous class about how in the early 1800s, in the late 1700s, early 1800s, farmers had begun to produce things at home. Intelligent merchants would give them the materials and finance the work. The farmers would do the work in their farms and their homes, and then the merchants would sell the goods. This is called outwork. By the time we get to the 1820s and to the 1830s, a lot of outwork is being centralized in one location, in factories. In factories, we begin to see the mass production of items, and instead of one person doing all of the work, what we're going to see is a division of labor in these factories. Now one person is just responsible for one part of the job. Technology is absolutely crucial to this. When we talk about the growth of the Industrial Revolution in the United States, we start obviously with Great Britain, the home of the Industrial Revolution. In the late 1700s, early 1800s, the Industrial Revolution, of course, had started in Great Britain. Technologies that you talked about in world history too, the spinning jenny, that kind of thing, they are all part of the textile revolution, the Industrial Revolution. The British government had specific policies designed to keep these new technologies in Great Britain. One of the biggest policies was that skilled machine operators who knew how to work these technologies were not allowed to leave the country. Which is why I have not misspelled this. You guys are used to talking about illegal immigrants. That's people coming into the country. Britain had another problem. They had people leaving their country illegally, so they're called illegal immigrants. And the most famous one is Samuel Slater. Samuel Slater was a very skilled machine operator in Great Britain in the late 1700s. He memorized the plans for an early textile machine, and he brought those plans in his head to the United States. Once he reached the United States, he would settle in Rhode Island, and he would help design and build one of the first textile machine in the United States. The other part of the growth of industry is the role of the government. The government is going to be crucial in protecting early American industries, particularly in the textile industries. We have to go back to the War of 1812 for this. After the War of 1812, the fledgling American textile industry is going to face fierce competition from British cotton, which was produced cheaply in factories. The British are able to make the cost of their cotton extremely low, make the cost of their textiles extremely low, because they are able to pay their workers very low wages. The main reason is that the British had a much bigger population than the United States. I know, it's hard to believe, but in the 1800s the British population was still a lot bigger than the United States, which meant that they could pay their workers a lot less. After the War of 1812, the American government starts protecting northern industries with tariffs. Obviously, this is one of the causes of the Civil War. Tariffs were hugely unpopular in the South among farmers because tariffs increased the cost of manufactured goods. Tariffs were seen as essential, especially in the regions which produced certain industries. The location of industry, as you can see with the map on the right, is going to be heavily concentrated in the New England region and a little bit less so in the Middle Atlantic region. This map just shows location of the textile industries, but this map would really be similar for a lot of other industries. Most industry in the US is going to be centered in the New England region. A big reason for this is the fall line. On this map, this red line shows you how far inland you have to go before you start hitting waterfalls. Now, in the early colonial period, this is a big disadvantage because in New England, a lot of its rivers are not very navigable because you hit a waterfall very early. However, in the Industrial Revolution, this is very, very advantageous. What it means is you have very easy access to fast-flowing rivers and streams, and you can use those fast-flowing rivers and streams to harness power in early factories. Most famous name obviously associated with the American Industrial Revolution is Eli Whitney, famous of course for inventing the cotton gin, a piece of technology that's going to revolutionize both the South and the North. By about the mid-1800s, 1840s, 1850s, what we're seeing in the United States is the development of so-called machine tools. Machine tools are machines that can produce other pieces of technology. So you're building machines that are producing other pieces of the Industrial Revolution. Sorry, that's not very clear. And this is the time period when we see machines starting to produce things like guns, things like keys, things like sewing machines, all of which become very highly prized American products. In fact, in 1851, there is the very first World Exposition, and it's held in London because that's where the Industrial Revolution was centered. And the American Revolution, the American products, several American products are going to be there. Namely sewing machines, locks, Yale locks, and guns. We can see here is in the middle of the 1800s. This was taken from a magazine, and this is an advert for a reaper. This is an agricultural machine which replaces the labor of several men, and it helps you harvest your crop. Now, why this is interesting is what we're seeing by the middle of the 1800s is a standardization of parts. If you look at the reaper on this advert, the parts are labeled. What that means is this is not a unique machine. McCormick and his company produced a whole bunch of these. So if something on your machine broke, you could replace it. This is called standardization of parts. It's a huge, huge part of the Industrial Revolution. Eli Whitney is very, very famous for the standardization of parts. The irony about Eli Whitney is he invents two huge things. Number one is the cotton gin, which probably causes the Civil War. Number two is standardization of parts, which allows, during the Civil War, the North to mass produce weapons, and it probably allows the North to defeat the South. Standardization of parts on a gun means that if something breaks, you can replace it with another part. Obviously, all of these technologies kind of come together, and there is some overlap between the Industrial Revolution and the Market Revolution, as technologies there are going to enable new markets to emerge. The change from working from home to working in the factories was not an easy one. It was not a smooth one. And workers by the late 1820s and the 1830s felt threatened by this new organization. What we're going to see is some attempt in the 1820s and the 1830s to organize workers into early unions. These attempts meet with very limited success, largely because in Great Britain and the United States, unions were not legal. By the late 1830s, most workers supported Andrew Jackson and his Democratic Party. In the early 1840s, probably the only success that unions had was a Supreme Court case, a state Supreme Court case in Massachusetts, where the Commonwealth of Massachusetts recognized the legality of a shoemaker's union. It was a small victory, but it is going to allow unions to emerge after the Civil War.